Which of these are you more scared of? Dogs or sharks? Which do you think is more likely to kill you? Most of us probably think that dogs are less likely to hurt us than sharks. I mean, look at that guy's cute little face. Unfortunately for you dog lovers, the opposite is actually true. Dogs are more likely to hurt us than sharks. In fact, in 2018, worldwide, there were only 4 fatalities due to shark attacks. Yet in the States alone, there were 36 deaths related to dog bites. So why did most of us probably assume something that isn't true? Let's explore how our mental shortcuts influence our judgments and decisions. You probably made that judgment on the last slide really quickly. Like I said, our brains have mental shortcuts called heuristics that allow us to make these judgments and decisions without putting in too much effort or thinking too hard. Unfortunately, these beneficial shortcuts have their flaws. They cause us to make mistakes in situations where they're wrong. Oftentimes, heuristics cause us to ignore base rates, or the amount of times that something really happens or is present in a population. Think back to the first question. Clearly, sharks do not hurt that many people per year, yet many people fear them. And the influences of our heuristics are much more widespread than just fear of swimming in the ocean. Let's explore how these heuristics influence personal and public fear through a story. Imagine you hear of a new virus called violitis that gives everybody who has it a purple rash and never-ending hiccups. And this virus is spreading throughout Europe. One day, you hear of a case of it reported in Canada. Every day, you see new articles and reports about violitis. So, when one day you get the hiccups, you are immediately worried that you too have this virus. And this is due to the availability heuristic. The availability heuristic relies on our most easily accessible or most easily remembered memory. Since you saw so many articles about violitis, it was the first thing that came to your mind as an explanation for your hiccups, despite the fact that it is super unlikely that you have violitis. So a couple weeks later, you're walking down the street and you see someone with purple spots on their arms who looks like they just hiccuped. You quickly turn away and avoid them. Turns out the purple spots on their arm were just bruises from playing with their dog, and the hiccups were actually burps from the filling lunch that they ate. But if I were to ask you, do you think that person you saw on the street has violitis, you would probably answer yes, and this is because of the representativeness heuristic. When you saw that person, you compared their characteristics to characteristics of the group in your mind, people who have violitis. Since there was lots of similarities, you placed that person into the group. The problem with this is that simply based on statistics alone, this person is more likely to be in the bigger group of people who happen to have purple spots and happen to have the hiccups, but they might not have the virus. And this is because every single person who has violitis falls into that bigger group of has hiccups and has purple spots. So after this scary encounter, you go home and you are ready to learn about this virus. But in your searches, you're only looking at articles that tell you about the terrible symptoms of violitis in Europe and not the true threat of this virus in Canada. The confirmation bias is our tendency to seek information that supports our beliefs. Although this is not a mental shortcut, this bias supports the same fears that our heuristics create. By only looking at articles that tell you about the threat of violitis, you're not really informing yourself and you're not helping decrease your fear. So think about how quickly you became scared of violitis. You were influenced by the availability heuristic, the representativeness heuristic, and the confirmation bias. Now imagine that this is what everybody goes through. Eventually, there's this whole population-wide fear of violitis, despite the fact that there was only one case reported in Canada. The influence of our heuristics and biases is clear in cases such as the panic over Ebola in the States in 2014. Ebola only actually killed 1 American and infected 10 others. But the influences of our heuristics spread further than just fear of sickness. Think about the fear of terrorism in the States. This is a huge topic of political conversation and was 2 of the top 10 fears of Americans in 2016, despite only having killed about 300 Americans between 2002 and 2017. Both of these threats are a lot less fatal than the flu, which killed 80,000 Americans in 2017 to 2018 alone. And think about it. Are you scared of the flu? Have you even gotten your flu shot this year to prevent yourself from this threat? Furthermore, these false fears help the spread of fake news, and this fake news only further fuels those same false fears. Take a look at this Facebook post, for example. In it, we have Hillary Clinton shaking hands with Osama bin Laden, and the original post was shared 5,000 times. And keep in mind that that doesn't even include the shares on the shared post. Now, PolitiFact confirmed that this photo was 100% doctored, and they rated it as pants on fire on their truth-o-meter scale. But there's no doubt that people's false fear of terrorism was partially responsible for how easily the public accepted and shared this photo to everybody else. So our heuristics create false beliefs, our biases support them, and the media helps spread these beliefs to a population-wide fear. Ultimately, we need to be aware of the influences of our heuristics to save ourselves from worrying about threats that aren't actually threats and prevent ourselves and society from unnecessary panic. Thank you.